Sabay na babangon, sama-samang ahon, ihanda ang sarili sa hamon. Ipapipigil sa pagsulong sa kinabukasan na katuon, para sa di kalidad na edukasyon.
Balik eskwela na naman, sa puso ang kahandaan, handang isip, handa bukas, sa pagkakaisa ay may lakas.
Ito na ang new normal, online learning at modular. Di pa kailangang mag-face to face, gamit ang cellphone at radio base. Yakapin na ang pagbabago, pahirapan, kaya natin to. Lakasan ng iyong loob, sa bagong normal, sa bagong mundo. Kristiyano at katutubo, isang hanggarin san patungo. Ipagpatuloy pag-aaral mo, tagumpay ay naghihintay sa'yo.
Balik eskwela na naman, sa puso ang kahandaan, handang isip, handa bukas, sa pagkakaisa ay may lakas.
Ito na ang new normal, online learning at modular. Di pa kailangang mag-face to face, gamit ang cellphone at radio base. Yakapin na ang pagbabago, pahirapan, kaya natin to. Lakasan ng iyong loob, sa bagong normal, sa bagong mundo.
Isang alang-alang natin ang ating kaligtasan, sa bawat oras at panahon, magpakailanman. Hangat palagi ng ating paaralan, ang matuto, gayon din maging ligtas ang kabataan. Tayo ay magkaisa, halina't sama-sama, kasali lahat, kasama lahat, para sa lahat. Pilipinas, maghanda ka na, balik eskwela na, tara. Tayong lahat, sabay-sabay,
pagkakaisa ay may lakas. Ito na ang new normal, online learning at modular. Di pa kailangang mag-face to face, gamit ang cellphone at radio base. Yakapin na ang pagbabago, pahirapan, kaya natin to. Lakasan ng iyong loob, sa bagong normal, sa bagong mundo. Sa bagong normal, sa bagong mundo. Sa bagong normal, sa bagong mundo.
Yan. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat, colleagues and DepEds and partners in the basic education sector. Anong oras na po? What time is it? Ayan, tama po. It's Research O'Clock. So, isang maligayang panonood po sa ating mga manonood ng Research O'Clock na live ngayon po sa ating DepEd Philippines Facebook page. Ako, muli, si Michael Manango mula sa Policy Research and Development Division, Planning Service ng Kagawaran ng Edukasyon. Kasama ko po ang aking colleague na si Mary Christ or MC, Hatid Pangilinan, na makikilala po natin mamaya. At kami po ang inyong magiging moderator ngayong araw. Gusto ko rin pong kilalanin, gusto ko po rin bigyang pagkilala ang ating mga Filipino Sign Language interpreters mula sa Philippine School for the Deaf, si Mr. Billy John Mangawil, si Mr. J. Maisel Lardizabal, and Miss Ellen Grace Delgado. At syempre, gusto ko rin pong bigyang pagkilala ang ating mga kaibigan mula sa DepEd Public Affairs Service na siyang nagtumulong sa amin na mag-set up ng live stream na ito. Yan. So kamusta naman po tayo ngayong araw? Sana naman po ready na po tayo para matuto po uli sa isa pang episode ng Research O'Clock. Yan. So ayun po, para lang po doon sa mga bago po sa ating programa, paliliwanag ko lang po yung statement of purpose nito, no. So mula pa noong taong 2018, isinasagawa na po ng DepEd ang Research O'Clock. Isa po itong Research Dissemination Forum kung saan pinapalaganap po natin ang paggamit ng resulta mula sa pagsasaliksik at ebidensya na siyang ginagamit sa paggawa ng mga desisyon sa kagawaran, pagbuo at pagpapatupad ng programa, pagbuo at pagbabago ng mga plano para sa basic education sector. Ipinagtitipon po natin sa Research O'Clock ang ating mga educator, mananaliksik, tagapagpatupad ng mga program at polisiya, at tagapagbuo ng polisiya upang pag-usapan ang mga isyung pang-edukasyon at magbigay ng mahalagang mga input para sa sumusunod na hakbang ng sektor. Ang forum na ito ay isang ring lugar para sa pagbigay ng feedback tungkol sa mga polisiya mula sa mga nagpapatupad nito sa mga field. So yun nga lang po, paunang pasabi na po na hindi lang po tayo nandito, so to speak, para makinig lang po sa sa mga presentation ng mga resource speaker. Gusto po namin marinig, mabasa ang inyong mga saloobin bilang magulang man, guro o mag-aaral tungkol sa ating pag-usapan ngayon. At konting incentive lang po, mababasa po ang inyong feedback on air. Ayan. So, bilang pagsuporta sa Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan or BELCP at Sulong Edukalidad Campaign ng Kagawaran, sinimulan po natin ang pag-conduct ng Virtual Research O'Clock ngayong July and August 2020. Ang mga presentation sa mga kabanata nito ng Research O'Clock ay nakatuon sa pagpapatuloy ng edukasyon sa gitna ng mga sakuna habang pinapanatili pa rin natin ang kalidad niya. Hindi naman po ibig sabihin na dahil po nasa isang emergency situation tayo na hindi tayo na titigil na lang po tayo sa pag-aaral. Sabi nga po ng ating secretary, education must continue, and we will sabi po sa Kagawaran, we are committed to making sure po na this goes as smoothly as possible for everyone involved. Para sa ating pong unang season ng Virtual Research O'Clock, ang mga talakayan ay iikot sa pagbibigay ng ebidensya ng ating mga partner organizations. So marami po kaming naimbita over these past few weeks na siyang matagal nang kasama ng DepEd sa pagpapatupad ng mga polisiya sa buong basic education sector. Itong mga ebidensya na kanilang nalikom ay galing po sa kanilang karandasan sa pagpapatupad nila ng distance learning hanggang sa ngayon. Bukod pa sa kanilang mga presentation, nagbigay pa anyaya din kami sa mga reactor o taga-tugon mula sa iba't ibang grupo ng stakeholder sa DepEd. Meron po kaming mga mag-aaral, may mga magulang, may mga guro, para makapagbigay po sila ng saloobin sa mga ipinakitang presentation ngayong araw. Sa ganitong paraan po, layunin po namin suportahan ang buong kagawaran at sektor pang-edukasyon sa paghahanda para sa school year 2020 2021. So sa huling kabanata po ng Research o Clock, ating pong tinalakay ang pagbibigay ng psychosocial support sa ating mag-aaral. So yun po nung last week nakita po natin mula sa presentations po ni EC Feingold ng UNICEF at saka ni Teacher Lois po ng UP Department of Family Life and Child Development, yung macro and yung micro implications po ng pandemya para po sa mga psychosocial conditions po ng learning para sa ating mga bata. At natutunan po natin kung paano po natin sila bibigyan ng suporta at bibigyan ng kaukulang atensyon kahit na nasa gitna tayo ng pandemya. So, kung gusto niyo po mapanood itong huling kabanata ng Research o Clock, maaari lang po kayong pumunta sa Facebook page. Hanapin niyo po yung mga video on demand doon. At saka hanapin niyo yung playlist po ng Research o Clock at mape-play niyo po hindi lang po yung kabanata na yun ng Research o Clock pero lahat po ng previous episodes noon. So far nagkaroon na tayo ng 3 episodes na natapos na. Ito na po yung ika-4 at ngayong araw tunghayan po natin ang diskusyon tungkol sa pagbibigay ng professional and psychosocial support to teachers sa pamamagitan ng mga presentation natin. Mamaya, matututunan natin kung paano natin mapapabuti ang pagbibigay suporta sa ating mga guro na siyang haligi ng ating sistemang pang-edukasyon. At now more than ever po na siyang lubos na nangangailangan ng ating suporta ngayong panahon ng pandemya. Pero bago po tayo makinig sa mga presentation ngayong araw, pakinggan po muna natin ang paunang salita mula kay Director Roger B. Masapol, ang Director ng Planning Service ng ating kagawaran.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Thank you, Michael, for that recap and then introduction. As Michael said, ito na yung huling virtual for this season ng Research o Clock. Pero nasa 14th forum na tayo since July 2018. Pero ito yung pang-apat na virtual. So congratulations sa team ng PRD for doing this and supporting the implementation of Learning Continuity Plan. So we are very close to August 24, which is the date identified by DepEd to start the school year. So this Research o Clock is a direct support to DepEd community in promoting evidence in making sure that all will be implemented. I mean, the Learning Continuity Plan will be implemented based on evidence. So we conducted this Research o Clock last 3 weeks ago, so that we sustain our effort to support the implementation of Learning Continuity Plan. If we recall, yung unang virtual Research o Clock last July 15, we explored the possibilities on effective distance learning delivery modalities through adaptive design for learning and educational program shows on televisions. So aside from this, we gained some policy insights regarding the equitable access to distance learning modalities and resources and concerns on the assessment of learning and monitoring of learners. So dahil sa bago sa atin ito, big time na nationwide implementation of distance learning, medyo nabulaga po ang lahat. That's why we are in our effort to support this effort of DepEd to understand what is distance learning modality that we adopted in the LCP. The second virtual Research o Clock happened in July 22, focuses on discussions on the principle ensuring inclusive education. So we are exploring that while we are in the lockdown or in a quarantine and we are implementing the distance education, how do we ensure that education still is all from the purview of an inclusive distance learning? So we the call to shift from the program-based view of inclusivity where inclusivity could only be provided to teachers in formal schooling. So we are shifting from that view that inclusive education is just can be provided in a formal setting. Also, the shift from teacher-centered learning paradigm to a learner-centered one whole require strengthened teachers upskilling, and then the increasing demand for upskilling of parents. So this distance education, makikita natin na malaki po yung role ng parents and then guardians sa pag-manage ng distance education at home. So kaya kailangan din nating ma-capacitate yung mga parents. Previously, last week, we conducted the third virtual research O Clock, which focuses on providing psychosocial support to students or to learners. Alam naman natin, lahat naman tayo, and even siguro myself, we experience some degree of anxiety and some degree of uncertainty. Lalo na siguro itong mga kabataan natin na bago sa kanila ang distance education. So, kaya kailangan nating masuportahan yung mga mag-aaral emotionally, mentally, to prepare them for the distance education. It's really very close. August 24 is just around the corner. So, we conducted that third virtual research O Clock last July 29. Now, this fourth virtual research O Clock will bring us to a reflection on how to increase the psychosocial and professional support to teachers during distance learning while in pandemic. As I've said, kahit po naka-distance learning po tayo, there were chances na mayroon pong may expose ang ating mga teachers, lalo na doon sa pag-conduct ng mga dry runs, sa pag-conduct o sa pag-distribute ng mga self-learning modules, at sa pag-retrieve ng mga self-learning modules. So we need to provide appropriate psychosocial and professional support to teachers. Kasi hindi madali yung role na ginagampanan ng ating mga teachers kahit na po ay nasa distance mode po tayo. For the remaining seasons of this new season of Research O Clock, our topic is on engaging household in the distance learning. We hope to support our stakeholders and parents in the basic education sector in preparing for the opening of the new school year through the presentations and discussions during the series of this forum. So Research O Clock as a platform for discussion continues to support DepEd action plan on sulong edukalidad towards an improved and updated K-12 curriculum, a better learning environment for all types of learners, upskilled professional teachers and school leaders, and wider and deeper engagement with stakeholders for support and collaboration. So thank you and welcome to our virtual Research O Clock on learning continuity.
Ayan, thank you Director Roger. So nakikita niyo po na itong Research O Clock isang bahagi lang po ito ng pangmalawakan nating preparasyon para sa paparating po na school year. Nakikita po natin na hindi lang po tayo nagbibigay ng support through forums like this at yung mga ibang mga events sa DepEd webpage. Meron rin po tayong mga policy support, professional support, at yung nakikita po natin ngayon nga ay yung bibigay pa tayo ng kaukulang psychosocial support. So thank you Sir Roger for shedding light on further efforts of DepEd po to prepare us for the coming better normal po. And now may I hand you over to my co-host si MC. Hi MC, nandiyan ka ba?
Hello Michael, magandang umaga.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Ayan po. Yes, magandang umaga sa ating manonood, sa ating mga viewers, participants. Ako po si MC Apit Pangilinan, your host and your moderator for today. At the same time, your MC na din for this session. So last Research O Clock, nabanggit nga ng aking co-host na nag-discuss tayo kung ano yung mga suporta na pwede natin ibigay sa ating mga mag-aaral. Especially now na nasa pandemic po tayo, and we shifted to various learning delivery modalities, para ma-continue yung pag-deliver ng basic education services. And today po, pag-uusapan naman natin kung paano naman natin masusuportahan ang ating mga mahal na guro. Given that sila po ang ating point person, katulad na sinabi ng aking co-host na si Michael, sila po yung ating susi upang direktang maiparating sa ating mga mag-aaral ang mga dapat nilang matutunan. kasama din po nito ngayon sa ating diskusyon kung ano-anong skills ng ating mga guro ang kailangan nating ma-develop sa new normal setup ng education ngayon sa panahon ng pandemic. So kung paano sila magiging more effective and efficient sa pag-deliver ng kanilang task. And secondly, kailangan din nating malaman kung anong klaseng professional development support or psychosocial support ang pinakailangan nating maibigay sa kanila. So that, katulad nga po na sinabi natin, distance learning tayo ngayon. So, kailangan natin maibigay kung ano yung mga suporta upang maging mas epektibo at efficient sila sa pag-deliver ng kanilang task. And lastly, kung paano din natin ma-ensure or mapapanatili na yung mga teachers natin ay kanilang ma-maintain ang kanilang professionalism at the same time yung kanilang personal wellness while implementing the distance learning. So, ayan po. Alam kong marami na sa atin ang excited na makinig at malaman ng mga sagot sa kanilang katanungan. So, lastly, alam ko marami talagang ang nagkaroon ng mga questions on how to support our children at home. And then for this time, kami din po dito sa DepEd Central Office, nais din po namin malaman yung inyong mga concerns, katanungan, at syempre yung inyong experiences at insights kung paano natin nasusuportahan yung ating mga kaguruan sa panahon ng pandemya. Okay, and syempre, ayan po, unlike nung conduct natin ng mga previous research o'clock, nabanggit kanina 2 years ago, hindi na po ito bago sa atin. Ang kaibahan lang po dati is face-to-face tayong gumagawa. Alam ko yung iba sa inyo nakapag-attend po sa bulwagan. Ayan, so talagang physically present tayo. Pero ngayon, dahil dala din po ng pandemya, kasi ang pag-conduct natin ng research o'clock is na-transform sa virtual or digital platform. So, with that, hindi natin kailangan magkaroon ng hindrance kung paano natin i-raise yung mga concerns natin o yung pagbibigay namin ng suporta sa inyo. So with that, for asking your question, alam ko po marami na umiikot sa inyong mga isip, yung mga concerns ninyo, and also yung pag-share nyo rin po ng inyong insights and experiences kasi alam ko marami din po sa atin na meron na naging experience kung paano sinuportahan ang ating kaguruan pagdating sa professional development at psychosocial support. So with that, may reminder lang din po kami sa pag-base na inyong concerns and insights. Yun, magtanong lang po tayo ng ating mga katanungan na relevant or direkta doon sa ating topic. So ilagay po natin kung para kanino ang ating katanungan, sino po yung speaker o yung ating presenter na dapat o gusto nating sumagot sa ating tanong. And then, pwede po natin itong i-post, yung ating katanungan, yung ating experiences, yung ating insights sa comment portion ng live stream na ito. Or, if you want to remain anonymous, para po hindi tayo kilala or medyo nag-aalangan tayong makilala tayo, you can post your questions or insights in our Padlet wall. So, nakapost po yan sa ating makikita po yan sa status post ng ating FB live page. So, padlet.com/psprd/QAR o'clock 2020. So, makikita niyo po yan. Check niyo lang po. I-click lang po yun. And then, hindi ko na rin po patatagalin. So, yung virtual research o'clock po natin, usually, nag-i-invite tayo ng ating mga partner organizations. So, marami po tayong partner organizations, especially ang DepEd. Yes. And also, nag-i-invite din po tayo ng ating mga research speakers from that various partner organization para po mag-discuss sa atin ng various topics na inilalabas o pinag-uusapan natin during the conduct of the research o'clock. So, aside from the invited speakers, presenters, also in our virtual research o'clock, nabanggit na po ng ating co-host na si Michael, is nag-invite din po kami ng guests para po doon magbigay ng kanilang reaction, insights, or yung mga experiences nila. Depende po doon sa topic na meron tayo. So, for all our guests and partners, lahat po yan sila is sang-ayon sa tema ng or vision ng ating departamento. So, hindi ko na po ulit patatagal. Alam po marami na excited. So, our first speaker for this session is currently the Director for Research at Ateneo Bulatao Center, Ateneo de Manila University. So, the Ateneo Bulatao Center provides counseling, therapy, assessment, training and workshops, and research services to enhance the psychological well-being of children, adolescents, and adults. So furthermore, they are committed to promote psychological wellness. So katulad nga po yung binabanggit natin kanina, psychosocial support, ganyan. And then, ito ay nangyayari sa mga schools, government organizations, non-government organizations, and corporations. So they are the service and research arm of the psychology department of Ateneo de Manila University. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our first speaker, the Director for Research of Ateneo Bulatao Center, Ms. Maria Lourdes Rosita A. Mesa, or you can call her Miss Lori. Ma'am Lori?
Okay, hello. Thank you for that warm introduction. So, I am Lori Mesa. I'm actually a developmental psychologist. And part of my work is to really promote programs to help with our mental wellness. So I'm also a teacher like you, like everyone here. I teach cognitive psychology at the Ateneo de Manila University. So give me a moment while I present my slide. So maybe we could, okay, all right. Okay, so today I would like to share with you what we have learned so far about how we can take care of our mental health. So for the past 5 months, medyo abala kami to deliver webinars to how we could take care of ourselves. So at the end of my 20 minutes, I hope na we achieve these objectives. That we understand the mental health issues, particularly what is unique about this COVID-19 crisis. I'm sure lahat tayo nakakaranas ng madaling mapagod, madaling mairita because of this crisis. And then I will talk about specific steps, parang how we can manage the stress we are experiencing. And I will talk about one particular intervention which we have learned from delivering this program and from research with public school teachers also, with public schools and with corporations. Mindfulness actually is something that will help us right now. Okay. So let me begin by talking about what mental health is. So, just to clarify kung anong ibig sabihin ng mental health, it's a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So, when we have good mental health, it talks about our capacity to be productive, to make good decisions, that we deliver results, that we teach well, that we make good relationships. So yun yung ibig sabihin ng mental health. And lahat tayo, meron tayong mental health. Okay. And katulad din ng mental health, nakakaranas din tayo ng mga pagkakataon na we encounter problems with our own mental health. Especially kapag nasistretch tayo or napapagod tayo or nasusobrahan tayo ng pag-exert nito. Parang physical health lang to, napapagod din tayo. So I want to talk about the instances na nagkakaproblema tayo with our own mental health. So, ano yung simptomas kapag we are already experiencing or nasi-stretch na yung ating mental health. So ito yun siguro yung pagbigayan na ng grades, umpisahan na ng klase, or ito naghahanda tayo para sa distance learning, no? So ano ba yung mga stress symptoms na yun? So ito yung mga pagkakataon na we become overreactive with our emotions. Ito na yung we become irritable, more irritable than usual, we become impatient, or we become oversensitive. And then, napapansin natin na we become hyperactive, impulsive, tanggap ng trabaho kahit na alam natin na hindi na natin kaya, overcommitting. And then, ayan yung very impatient na tayo sa mga katrabaho natin. And this mode of operating leads to anxiety. Ayan na yung worrying needlessly or excessively worrying about things about the future, baka kung anong masamang mangyari. So yan, nag-overthink tayo. And dahil abala tayo sa pag-iisip kung anong mangyayari sa future, nahihirapan tayo actually to focus on work. You will notice na hirap ka na to stay in one task while you are working. Mas madalas kang nagkakamali. And you ruminate. And as a result, hindi ka na rin makatulog. 2:00, 3:00 na ng umaga, hirap ka matulog. So, mga senyales yan na medyo nandun ka na nasa-stress ka na, paparating na sa distress. Pagkatapos naman ng chronic and patuloy na experience ng stress, napupunta naman tayo sa burnout. Ang burnout is parang ubos ka na. So kung yung stress, sobra-sobrang energy and mental activity ang naibibigay mo, sa burnout, wala ka ng gana, ubos ka na. So ayan, kung masyado kang overcommitted, pag stressed ka, pag burnout ka na, wala ka ng gana, disengagement, manhid, blunted emotions, feeling physically tired and drained most of the time. Procrastinating, we find ourselves procrastinating more than usual. Hirap tayo to even start tasks. We feel helpless and hopeless. Ito medyo nagiging malala na to. Starting to lose motivation, ideals, or hope. Some people use food, drugs, alcohol, or sometimes excessive watching of Netflix or Korean novela. Sometimes inaabot tayo ng 8 oras just to cope. Or we take out our frustration on others. And it leads to detachment and depression kung hindi natin ma-address. Okay. So siguro sa listahan na to at one point or another, bago mangyari yung pandemya, medyo nararanasan na natin to, no? Pero nakaka-recover tayo. Okay, so yun, kailangan ma-address para hindi napupunta doon sa malalang experiences of depression. Okay, so I want to talk about our unique experience about COVID-19 crisis.
Excuse me, Ma'am Lori.
Yes?
Sorry, this is Michael, the host. Yung presentation nyo po, i-share nyo po yung slideshow po, imbis po yung actual PowerPoint window. Kasi yung nakikita po dito, nakikita po sa broadcast yung PowerPoint.
All right. Ay. Okay na ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Alright, so babalik ko lang yung listahan, baka gusto nyong makita. So ito yon. So pag sobrang exert natin ng energy and mental operations, we experience stress. And kapag nasobrahan naman to, nauubos tayo, napupunta tayo sa burnout symptoms. So gaya ng sabi ko kanina, bago magkaroon ng COVID-19 crisis, nararamdaman na natin ito, pero nakaka-recover tayo, nakaka-bounce back tayo. Okay? So ngayon, I want to talk about the COVID-19 crisis stress and kung bakit iba yung impact nito sa atin kumpara doon sa regular, normal, everyday stress natin as teachers. Bakit, ewan ko kung nararanasan nyo rin to, no? Pero bakit ngayon parang ang daling mapagod, ang hirap magtrabaho, ang hirap mag-focus? So let me explain kung bakit. Okay. So there's this thing called the cognitive load or the load theory. So load theory talks about how our working memory only has a limited capacity. So ang ibig sabihin nito, we are wired to only take in a few information. Kapag sumobrang dami yung information, na-overwhelm tayo and napapagod tayo. So tayong mga teachers, naintindihan natin to, no? So that's why when we present our lessons, when we present our test and the reading chapters, hinihimay-himay natin into chunks, di ba? Para mas maliliit na impormasyon, para mas madaling maintindihan ng mga bata. So we rely on chunks to help with our memory para hindi masyadong mabigat. Pero ngayong pandemya, medyo na-overwhelm tayo kasi yung mga roles natin and the physical spaces between work and life, work and home life, medyo nawawalan tayo ng boundaries. Okay. So, if you think about it, meron tayong role bilang teacher, meron tayong role bilang nanay or asawa or kapatid. And yung roles na yon nahahati because of the physical space. Alam natin kapag, okay, nasa school na ako, nakikita ko yung blackboard, nakikita ko yung coworkers ko, I will assume the teacher role. Okay, pag uwi ko ng bahay, magpapalit na ako ng pambahay, I will now assume the mother role or the wife role or the husband role. So, yung mga rituals na yon and even those physical spaces, yun yung parang chunks and parang memory aid natin to help with managing our many roles, our many tasks. And so dahil ngayon, kung saan ka umuuwi, yung home life mo, doon ka na rin nagtatrabaho, nagpapatong-patong yung roles and it becomes overwhelming for our cognitive capacity to take in all of that in one space. And that's why it's overloading our mental space. And as a result, it's also physically taxing. Nakakapagod siya physically na nagpapatong-patong yung roles natin sa isang lugar, wala na yung mga structures na dating nagga-guide noon. Isa pa, ang dami nating kailangan alalahanin ngayong panahon ng COVID. Nakapag-stay ba ako ng 6 meters? Nasuot ko ba yung mask ko kapag nung ni-receive ko yung delivery? Nakapaghugas ba ako ng 20 seconds? Ang daming kailangan alalahanin, ang daming kailangan matutunan, paano bang gumamit ng Zoom, paano ba mag-upload ng material, paano ba may itong distance learning. And ang dami rin nating trabaho. Okay? So, isa ito sa unique circumstance kung bakit mas stressful and nakakapagod ngayon. So what can we do with this cognitive load na nakaka-add sa ating stress, no? So people that I've talked to, both in corporations, students, and my fellow teachers, talked about creatively creating those boundaries and even temporal or time boundaries. So, sobrang importante yung mga ritual na ginagawa natin na binabaliwala natin dati, no? Yung magbibihis tayo para pumasok sa trabaho, or pupunta sa ibang lugar, which is the school, to perform our work tasks at school. So, dahil wala na yon, paano natin maibabalik yung mga boundaries na yon? So, yung mga ibang tao, yun, nagbibihis talaga sila kung halimbawa, kahit sa bahay lang sila para magtrabaho. Or sometimes they make boundaries by setting, okay, between 8 to 9, magtatrabaho ako sa school. Tungkol sa school. Pagdating ng 11 to 12, magluluto na ako. So, and isusulat mo yon para nakikita mo yung hati ng oras mo, ng roles mo, ng identity mo, to help with the cognitive load that we are experiencing. So ilan lang yon sa mga solusyon na narinig ko sa ibang tao. Okay. At dahil sobra yung cognitive load sa atin ngayong panahon ngayon, now is the time to prioritize. So sa dami ng listahan ng gagawin ko ngayon, ano siguro yung 3 pinaka-importanting bagay na kailangan kong matapos ngayong araw na ito? So it's important to be selective now about what we need to do and what we need to do first. And that's why setting a schedule is very important because it helps with managing this cognitive load. And take true breaks. What does that mean? Really take a screen time break to eat nutritious food, to take a nap, to actually nourish and restore yourself versus magsuscroll lang tayo sa Facebook, which nakakadagdag ulit doon sa cognitive load na sinasabi ko. Okay, another aspect about this crisis that makes it extra stressful for us is the lack of control that we have. So meron tayong insecurity ngayong panahon na to due to the uncertainty. So dati, yung buong school year natin naka-map out na. So alam natin kung kailan yung start ng class, nakaset na yung school calendar, holidays, and everything. So our mind relaxes and nababawasan yung pagkabahala pag alam natin kung ano ang mangyayari in the future. And so dahil sa panahon ngayon, walang makakapagsabi kung anong mangyayari next week, next month, walang kasiguruhan, our mind can't help it but make those predictions ourselves. Kasi yun yung trabaho ng utak natin, to predict. Our mind is a predicting machine. And now, the way our minds predict is that we come up with the worst case scenarios. So, kung halimbawa, we want to know our state of health, we want to know kung kamusta tayo economically, ang iisipin natin ay yung pinakamalalang mangyayari. So, ayan na yung, magkakasakit ako ng COVID or mawawalan ako ng trabaho. So, ganun yung direksyon ng utak natin to think about the worst case scenarios. And evolutionarily, it makes sense. Kasi tinutulungan tayo ng utak natin to over-prepare, to anticipate dangers, and to prepare for the worst. Pero yun lang, yung consequence nun, we become emotionally distressed naman. Sobra-sobra naman tayong nababahala and distressed. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng poor emotion control because of those worst case scenario predictions. And so we increase bad habits or poor coping. We become irritable. We become oversensitive. So how do we address itong hindi maiwasan na lack of control and the tendency to predict the worst case scenarios? So the first is to deliberately adopt an ownership mindset. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Na magkaroon tayo ng self-responsibility na akuin na dahil I own these emotions, I own these thoughts, I can do something about it. And what's the first thing we can do about it is to actually be aware of our own mind states so that we can get out of that victim mindset and assert more control into our well-being. Adopt a growth mindset and reframe problems as challenges. Again, setting a schedule is something where you can exercise control. Na kung hindi ko alam ang mangyayari next week, next month, ngayong araw, pipiliin ko kung ano ang gusto kong mangyari para sa akin. Ako ang gagawa ng schedule ko. This is how we assert control. And include activities that refuel. Okay, so now I want to talk about a very specific intervention, which is mindfulness. Siguro yung iba sa inyo narinig na ito. And how this staying in the here and now, how helping our mind stay in the present moment actually helps with the problem of cognitive load and lack of sense of control. So, ito yung resulta nung pag-aaral namin last 2015 and ng sobrang daming research that points mindfulness actually is a protective buffer for stress, depression, addiction, PTSD, and many other psychological ailments. So, when we ran this with Quezon City public school teachers last 2015, quantifiably, nabawasan yung perceived stress and perceived experience of distress. And yung ibang research na ginawa namin, ganun din yung resulta. So it seems like a promising public program to address mental health and promote well-being. So it could become a life skill actually for all of us. And it's cost-effective kasi hindi, ang kailangan mo lang is paglaanan ng oras. At siguro, the most, kailangan mo lang ng timer, yun lang, or panahon, yun lang. So ano ba yung mindfulness? The formal definition is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So, ang basic steps ng mindfulness practice is, first, maghahanap ka ng isang lugar na komportable ka, kung maaari, tahimik, hindi naman kinakailangan. And then, itutuon mo ang atensyon mo sa pagpansin kung anong nangyayari sa kalooban mo. Pinapansin mo ang dumadaloy sa isipan mo, pinapansin mo kung ano ang nangyayari sa mga emosyon mo. So that's step 1. Step 2, we deliberately anchor our attention to the breath. So pinapansin ang paghinga at ang physical na nararanasan natin sa paghinga. So yun yung magiging anchor ng attention natin. Imbis na lihis ng lihis sa pag-worry sa future, imbis na inaalala kung anong mangyayari, or imbis na inaalala yung dami ng kailangan gawin, inaangkla yung atensyon sa paghinga. And then, papansinin lang kapag lumihis ang atensyon, catch and notice where your mind has gone. Pinapansin lang kung saan lumihis ang atensyon. At ito yung ibig sabihin ng non-judgment. Okay, this is my thought right now. It's okay. This is my emotion right now. And then, binabalik lang ulit ang atensyon sa paghinga. So, siguro itong practice na to, at the most, maglalaan lang tayo ng 10 minuto kada araw to continuously practice this. And gawin lang ito to actually condition our mind. So if you think about it, mindfulness is not about breathing. It's actually a mental training. Kasi ang atensyon natin ay sobrang critical sa pag-regulate sa ating emotion, sa pag-regulate sa stress natin. And so sa paulit-ulit na pagbabalik sa lumilihis na atensyon natin sa paghinga, hindi tayo nadadala, hindi tayo madaling madala ng matitinding emosyon, hindi tayo madaling madala ng lipad na isip. So when we sharpen our focus, we understand where our concentration strays. And when we strengthen that, we get better at managing our mind. And so if I could summarize how we can protect ourselves during this crisis, is siguro ito, awareness of our own mental states plus compassionate action. So kailangan mas maging maalam tayo kung ano yung nangyayari sa atin, and then aksyonan dahil we realize we have more control and we have more power over our emotions and over our thoughts than we think we do. So, thank you. So, yon yung maibabahagi ko ngayong araw na ito.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Miss Lori. So, ayan po, no, nakita natin kung ano yung mga nagiging source ng ating stress. At saka launan ay magkakaroon tayo ng burnout symptoms. So, nag-discuss po yan ni Lori, no? Sinanggit niya rin ang cognitive load theory, kung ano yung nagkakos ng ating stress at nagkakos ng ating burnout. At the same time, binanggit din niya kung ano yung possible interventions na pwede natin gawin. So, isa po dyan is yung mindfulness, napakahalaga po yan. Mindfulness na ito lang ang iisipin natin, yung present, yung oras na ngayon, at tayo ay kailangang gumawa o magtrabaho ng naayon sa purpose lang natin. So yung pag-set po ng objective, yung kung ano ang kailangan natin ma-accomplish for this specific time is napaka-importante po nun. Hindi po natin kailangan mag-isip ng mga kung ano pa yung susunod na mangyayari. So, ngayon lang naman po yan kasi nasa pandemic tayo. So we cannot control everything, especially yung hindi na talaga or beyond our control na. So mindfulness, isa pong intervention, and isa rin po yung pagiging awareness natin sa ating sarili. At the same time, sasabayan po natin ng compassionate action. So yun po, with that, maraming salamat again, Miss Lori, for that makahulugang diskusyon, at sa ganun din po sa ating mga teachers, at least malalaman po natin kasi sila yung ating point person at the field, especially pagdating ng pasukan, no? So marami yan, ang teachers dyan, sila ay parents at the same time, may mga anak na nag-aaral, sila din ay solo parents minsan, na meron din gawaing bahay. So maraming nagkakos ng stress sa kanila pagdating sa bahay. So, yun nga po, isa rin yung mode of delivery ng ating edukasyon sa panahon ngayon. So, maraming adjustments na gagawin. But, yun nga po, uulitin natin, mindfulness, awareness, and compassionate action is the key po. Yun. So, maraming salamat po. And then, next na po tayo sa ating next speaker. Our second speaker po is a Senior Program Manager of the Philippine National Research Center for Teacher Quality or RCTQ. So ang RCTQ po is a partnership between the Philippine Normal University, PNU, and the University of New England, Australia, supported by the Australian government. So they provide evidence-based policy advice for strengthening teacher quality by conducting high-impact applied research. So specifically, RCTQ assists in the implementation of K-12 reform by providing nationally consistent policy advice focused on una po dyan yung free service teacher growth and development. Second, in service teacher professional growth and development. And third, teacher, educator, subject, and academic renewal. Walang iba po, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our second speaker, Dr. Allen Espinosa.
Thank you,
Allen?
MC. Yes, thank you, MC, for the kind introduction. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning again to everyone. So I'm Alan Espinosa from the Philippine National Research Center for Teacher Quality. I'm a science education academic. I teach at the Philippine Normal University courses such as science education and education research. So this morning, I'll be talking about how to support teachers during the COVID-19 pandemic. So earlier, Ms. Laurie discussed about psychosocial support, and itong presentation kong ito, I'll be touching on some topics on supporting teachers, psychosocial support to teachers as well. But before that, let me guide you through or walk you through to the outline of my presentation this morning. So I'll be giving a brief background of RCTQ, who we are and what we do, and then the current initiatives and policies that support teacher quality in the Philippines, supporting teachers in a time of a pandemic, and some recommendations from my team. All right. So what is RCTQ? MC mentioned earlier that RCTQ is or has been a partner of DepEd in the implementation of K-12. But what is RCTQ? No? So RCTQ is the full name is the Philippine National Research Center for Teacher Quality. And our mission is to conduct high-impact applied research directed at strengthening teacher quality in the Philippines. And we are supported by the Philippine and Australian governments. Okay, so RCTQ is a partnership between the Philippine Normal University, the country's National Center for Teacher Education, and the University of New England in Australia through Zimmer National Research Center. All right, so let's move now to the current initiatives and policies that support teacher quality in the Philippines. So these are products of long-time research and collaboration of DepEd with our research center, and ito yung pinagmulan ng mga policies at initiatives na ipepresent ko sa inyo today. No? So it's a long-time research and a long-time study between DepEd and the Philippine National Research Center for Teacher Quality. No? So in 2017, no, the national adoption and implementation of the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers was signed into policy by none other than our Secretary of Education, Leonor Bagtolis Briones. This one is DepEd Order number 42, series of 2017. And another order is the DepEd Order number 11, series of 2019, or the implementation of the NAIAP transformation. So in the NAIAP transformation, we are supporting DepEd DepEd through NAIAP in the development of the Career Advancement Program and the Teacher Induction Program. And DepEd Order number 1, series of 2020, guidelines for NAIAP recognition of professional development programs and courses for teachers and school leaders. DepEd Order Number 50, Series of 2020, or the DepEd Professional Development Priorities for Teachers and School Leaders for school year 2020 to 2023. So in this DepEd order, we assisted DepEd, or we provide technical assistance to DepEd in identifying PST indicators that we can, or PD priorities na pwede nating nakadepende dun sa PPST na pwede nating ibigay sa ating mga teachers. Also, we are assisting DepEd in the integration of the PPST or the standards in the DepEd HR system. No? So the teacher hiring, promotion, and reclassification are now being aligned with the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. No? And assessments and rubrics are now standards-based, meaning they are now based in the PPST or the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. So why is there a clamor for standardizing teacher quality in the Philippines? No? Sabi nga sa Philippine Economic Update, this one is a World Bank report. Human capital is a critical driver of both economic growth and inclusion. That's why strengthening our human capital is very important in the society. No? Dagdagan pa ng rapid technological advances are increasingly making human capital, such as knowledge, skills, and good health, essential to the economic success. And sinabi rin sa World Bank, na-cite din sa World Bank report, ang Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. Sabi dito, there are a large number of initiatives in the Philippines focused on boosting human capital. Specific initiatives include the Philippines Plan of Action for Nutrition, the new Philippines Professional Standards for Teachers, the new Universal Health Coverage Law, and ongoing efforts to improve the Pantawid Pamilyang Filipino program. But the principal challenge facing policymakers is the effective implementation of these initiatives. No? And then this pandemic happened. So with the COVID-19 situation, teachers will find themselves in greater need of support in responding to learner needs. And not only that, teachers will also have to, will also need support to the demands of the teaching profession, gaya ng mga nabanggit kong polisiya kanina at initiatives ng DepEd. So paano magko-continue ito while there is an ongoing pandemic? What support do teachers need during the COVID-19 pandemic? Ayan. So una, let us examine the global context of what teachers need during this time of pandemic. No? So number one, support teacher resilience to ensure teacher effectiveness. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng teacher resilience? Ito yung nabanggit ni Ms. Lori kanina, that the well-being of teachers, counseling of teachers, and then parang sineset natin yung mind nila on transitioning into or migrating into online learning or distance learning. Ganun din, we are securing the job and salary of teachers. No? Ito yung makakapag-support para sa resilience ng mga teachers. Number two, support teachers instructionally to ensure teacher effectiveness. Ano ba yung mga support natin for instructional delivery? No? So number one, how do we support them? Una dito yung mga professional development on distance learning and how we can migrate courses, or how we can migrate modules into digital and interactive format or materials. Number three, support teachers technologically to ensure teacher effectiveness. Ito yung provision for distance learning. So support for teachers on internet access, support for teachers like access to computers and other digital devices. No? This one is a report posted in the World Bank, or this one is a report of World Bank. You can access it through this through the website that you can see below my presentation, my slide. All right, how about in the Philippine context? No? How do we help teachers, help learners in a pandemic? So RCTQ asked education leaders, supervisors, school heads, and superintendents through an online focus group discussion on April 28, 2020. So these are the teachers who participated, the school leaders who participated during the focus group discussion. All right. And I summarized the FGD with teachers or with school leaders into three. No, number one is the teachers' predicaments. Number two is what do they need, and number three are some recommendations coming from the FGD. No? So number one in the predicament of teacher is the lack of resources for distance learning, such as television set, radio, gadgets, and computers. So we are aware na hindi naman lahat ng estudyante natin at hindi rin lahat ng teachers natin ay may access sa television, radyo, at kung ano-anong mga gadget at computers, no? At pangalawa dyan ay poor or lack of internet connectivity. Dito nga sa Manila, kahit na nasa Manila tayo, minsan mahina pa rin ang signal, and some students and some teachers do not have internet connection. And another major predicament of teachers is that they worry na yung mga estudyante natin ay hindi pa, or majority ng mga estudyante natin ay hindi pa independent learners. So ano yung supportang kailangan ng mga teachers natin sa panahon ng pandemya? No? So number one is the training on distance learning. So they specifically mentioned professional development on distance learning. No? So ano yung mga gagawin nila, anong kailangan nilang preparasyon para sa distance learning or para makapagturo sila while working from home, no? Pangalawa ay yung training on migrating printed modules to digital or interactive materials. So another training na naman no, kung paano nila i-migrate o ililipat yung mga printed materials nila into digital or interactive materials na kayang gamitin ng mga bata while they are learning from home. Okay? At pinakamahalaga ay funding for distance learning. So lahat ng ito ay nangangailangan ng provision for funding ng distance learning. Okay, so ano yung mga recommendations ng mga school leaders natin? No? So number one, sinabi nila na kailangan ng systematic and coordinated planning from DepEd Central Office to the school level. So systematic ang ating pagpaplano mula sa central office pababa sa mga distrito at school level na mga school levels, no? Pangalawa, the curriculum implementation division from each school's division should develop materials that integrate subjects such as English, mathematics, and science. So, isinuggest din ng mga participants natin na kailangan, although matagal na yung clamor dito na integrate yung mga subjects na dapat hindi sila hiwa-hiwalay or hindi sila chunk na pinag-aaralan ng mga bata para makita ng mga bata yung importansya niya ng connection ng bawat aralin na ito, lalo na sa panahon ng pandemya. Pangatlo ay realignment of financial resources and budgetary expenditures during this pandemic to allow support for teachers. Ito siguro ay pwedeng pagplanuhan ng DepEd kung maari ba nilang i-realign yung mga financial resources and budgetary expenditures para masuportahan ng mga guro natin. Kumbaga, sa ngayon, nabawasan naman yung gastos ng mga operation ng schools kasi walang estudyante at walang mga guro sa loob ng paaralan. So kung pwede, itong mga financial resources na ito or budget na ito ay kung pwede nating ilagay no sa pagsuporta ng mga teachers natin upang makapag-migrate into online or distance learning at paggawa ng mga modules para sa ating mag-aaral. Pang-apat ay school heads and supervisors and master teachers must be able to support teachers. Ngayon, more than ever, no, kailangan ng mga teachers ang support ng mga school heads, supervisors, and master teachers para matugunan natin yung mga pangangailangan ng mga estudyante natin at ganun din ang mga teachers natin para masuportahan nila ang ating mga estudyante. At dagdag namin ito no, na recommendation is DepEd through NAIAP should continue developing training or professional development programs that will enable teachers to adopt and or respond more quickly and effectively to emergency circumstances such as the COVID-19 pandemic with their learners. So inirekomenda namin sa DNAIAP na ipagpatuloy yung paggawa ng mga training at professional development na magbibigay sa mga guro ng paraan at tips kung paano makapag-migrate sa online learning at paano natin i-migrate yung curriculum from face-to-face into distance learning. At again, i-emphasize ko lang na itong mga needed skills dito are already captured generically in the PPST or the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. And these are sample PPST proficient teacher indicators that can respond to the ongoing pandemic. So number one, plan and deliver teaching strategies that are responsive to the special educational needs of learners in difficult circumstances, including geographic isolation, chronic illness, displacement due to armed conflict, urban resettlement or disasters, child abuse and child labor practices. Pangalawa, select, develop, organize, and use appropriate teaching and learning resources, including ICT, to address learning goals, and build relationship with parents, guardians, and the wider school community in the educative process. So these are the sample PPSC proficient teacher indicators, or ito yung mga teachers natin. Ngayon, let's move to the highly proficient teachers or the master teachers. So number one, advise and guide colleagues in the selection, organization, development, and use of appropriate teaching and learning resources, including ICT, to address specific learning goals. And number two, evaluate with colleagues teaching strategies that are responsive to the special educational needs of learners in difficult circumstances, including geographic isolation, chronic illness, displacement due to armed conflict, urban resettlement or disasters, child abuse, and child labor practices. So these are the PPST indicators that can respond to the current or the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. All right, I will end with this quote from Linda Darling Hammond. If you don't have strong supply of well-prepared teachers, nothing else in education can work. And with that, thank you, everyone.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Dr. Espinosa, for that very fruitful discussions on how we will support our teachers, especially during this situation. So, just a brief summary lang din po doon sa discussion ni Dr. Espinosa, nabanggit niya na ang DepEd is merong mga pinoprovide na professional development for our teachers. So, nandyan po, binanggit niya rin kung paano natin masusuportahan ang ating kaguruan, hindi lamang sa pandemyang ito, kundi sa mga susunod pang panahon. At ito rin po ay nangyayari na before pandemic happen. So, meron po tayong mga pinoprovide na support for teachers in terms of yung resilience to ensure yung effectiveness nila. So, pag resilience po, sinasabi natin to, kung paano natin ma-maintain yung kanilang well-being, yung health ng kanilang well-being. And then, support for teachers instructionally. So, mahalaga ito kasi nag-shift tayo sa distance learning. So, marami tayong various learning delivery modalities na ini-implement. So, kailangan nilang matrain to implement those. And then, support teachers technologically to ensure teacher effectiveness. So, marami po sa ating kaguruan din ay hindi ganun kapamilyar kung paano mag-shift sa technology or i-shift ang kanilang mga printed modules and notes doon sa digital or virtual platform. So, another nabanggit din po niya na sa Philippine context, nagkaroon tayo ng mga issues na map out po yun, at ito ay yung pagkakaroon ng kakulangan sa ating mga resources like yung gadgets, internet connectivity, and hindi lang po yun, alam ko din may mga lugar pa rin sa Pilipinas na mahina po o limited ang connection sa electricity. Ayan po, which cause din na nag-hinder doon sa delivery ng basic education services. And then, nabanggit na rin po na meron pa rin mga, or most of our learners are dependent. So, hindi mo sila, kumbaga, hindi natin sila napapabayaan ng mag-isa na gumawa. Kailangan nila laging ginagay. So, ang mga kailangan suporta po is, yan, unang-una is yung training on distance learning, katulad nga po na nabanggit kanina, and then training on migrating printed modules to digital prints or platforms, and then, of course, yung funding ng distance learning, nandiyan yung realignment of our financial resources. So, napakahalaga po ng provision of training sa panahon ngayon, especially marami sa ating mga guro ay nag-a-adjust. So, in line with that, yung mga professional development din po natin is dapat align po doon sa Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers or yung PPST. Kasi po, ito po ay ang magiging silbi na ang ating mga kaguruan, yung ating mga teachers sa baba, sa field, ay effective at efficient na nag-deliver ng kanilang mga task sa ating mga mag-aaral. So, napakahalaga po, no? Align po dapat yung mga professional development na kinecreate natin doon sa improvement na kailangan ng ating mga guro. So, ayan po, kanina, before ako nag-introduce ng ating speakers for our topic, nabanggit, kung maalala niyo po, binanggit ko yung sort of guide questions lang din na ano-anong skills ng ating mga guro ang kailangan nating ma-develop in the new normal setup. So, kanina po, nandyan, na-discuss ni Ms. Lori. Isa dyan is yung kailangan tayo magkaroon ng mindfulness, awareness, and especially yung compassionate action. So, yun po yung mga skills na kailangan natin matutunan or ma-develop during these times. And then, ano klaseng professional support at psychosocial support ang dapat nating maibigay sa ating mga mahal na guro. So, andyan po ang discussion ni Dr. Espinosa is yung mga provision of training that is aligned to the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers, at the same time doon sa needs ng ating mga guro upang ma-deliver nila yung ating mga various learning delivery modalities. So, with that, alam ko po marami sa atin ang mga nabubuo ng mga tanong at gusto na mag-share ng kanilang insights. Remind lang din po namin na i-post ang inyong mga katanungan sa ating doon po sa ating page. And then, kung sino yung specific na speaker na sasagot sa tanong, pwede lang. And then, pwede rin po natin i-post kung gusto natin manatiling hindi tayo kilala doon sa ating Padlet na nakapost din po dyan sa ating FB page status. So, click nyo lang po yung link and pwede nyo po i-post ang inyong mga katanungan at insights. Insights po, napakahalaga kasi po, dahil ngayon, kailangan po ng maraming sources of ideas kung paano natin mas may improve ang ating delivery of education system. Ayan po. For our next part of our session, Mr. Michael, there.
Ayan. Thank you, MC. So ngayon naman po, papakinggan po natin ang mga saloobin ng ating mga kasama po, mga stakeholder po natin sa basic education sector. So first up po, meron po tayong representante mula sa isang private school. Siya po ay si Miss Beverly A. Batawang mula sa Food for Hungry Minds School, Malolos Campus, Malolos City, Bulacan. Ma'am Beverly, nandiyan na po ba kayo?
Yes.
Ayan, ma'am.
Good
Sige
morning.
Po. Go ahead.
Good morning, fellow educators and everyone watching today. This school year is undeniably more challenging than ever. So teaching is already challenging, but this pandemic has made it more challenging for every one of us. And this morning, we thank the speakers who shared to us the different ways by which we can adjust to this new normal. So my role for today is I would like to share some of my insights as a teacher from a non-government organization. Since we already started our classes um, last July, I would be sharing some of the things that I have learned or we have done that could be helpful to my fellow teachers. So, just like what Ms. Maria Lourdes mentioned earlier, that she mentioned the word switch. So, I think this pandemic has really switched us from, yeah, a different world maybe that from what we have, what we were used to, and this one, I made an acronym to just help us teachers adjust in the new normal. So I think S is for support. Teachers really need support, not just from administrators or from DepEd or from the school where they work, but also we need the support from parents because they're the ones who work with their kids right now. And we also need support from friends and families, just like what our speaker said, that sometimes you don't know which role are you in now. Are you a part of the household as a mom, as a parent, or you're working because we're in the same space? So probably family supports are very important this time. And W is willingness to learn and unlearn. So probably we needed to unlearn some of the things that we already do when we do face-to-face classes, because they might not be applicable this time. And there's just so many things that we have to learn since we were not taught this way when when we were studying. So this will be a stretch for every educator at this moment in time. I just would like to add also for the support, aside from the psychosocial or emotional support that our administrators could give, I think teachers also need support in terms of internet allowances, because we know that uh, we really need this for online. So since in private schools we really use online teaching, so probably it would be very helpful if schools would help teachers secure internet allowances and probably subsidize laptops with a proper specs that are proper for video conferencing. Um, and another is um, the letter I. So we have SWI, integrate. So there might be effective activities that we have been doing already, which are already effective in face to face, and we can integrate them in the new normal. So in our school, we have what we call morning meetings. Morning meetings are time. It's the first thing in the morning where we form a circle. Everybody sitting down, we greet each other, the children. There's a time for sharing of emotions. And for now, since it's virtual, we still do it together as teachers. And it's very helpful that we're able to express how we feel today, or to understand others, how of their emotions at that moment. So there are also activities in here. So this morning meeting is something that we do in school, and it's something that we integrate now that we are doing the online school. And I agree with Ms. Maria Lourdes about the mindfulness. It's very effective. We have been doing it with the kids and with the teachers, and we do it now every day before we start classes. We do mindfulness, and this really helps to ease anxiety or whatever things that is bothering students or maybe teachers, to focus on what is supposed to be learned that day. And letter T is to tap resources, no? So probably one of the help that our government can do is to coordinate with data companies and probably provide free data or probably subsidized data, so that or probably strengthen the connections, because that's one of the source of stressors right now when we have online classes. Yung natatakot ka na, ano, paano kung biglang nawala yung estudyante mo? And it really happens. And worse, yung teacher po ang nawawalan ng connection. Biglang naiwan lahat ng mga estudyante, and then you're rushing to go back, and those sort of things. So probably we could tap resources to help in this, or also what do you call this? Online platforms that could help in delivering lessons more effectively. And resources could also mean our students, because since these students are digital native, sometimes they could learn faster. And katulad ng isang estudyante ko, some of her classmates actually cannot catch up. Nahirapan sila, ano yung gagawin, saan hahanapin, ganyan. So ang ginawa niya po ay gumawa siya ng sariling video and posted it in our chat group to help her classmates. So that is tapping resources. Kasi it's very stressful when all of the parents, all of the kids, so we have around 25 to 29 students per class, who needs help. So if we could tap resources like these, kids could help each other, and probably the parents could also help each other, so they could so that we could reduce too much stress. And then C from the word switch would be to connect and to collaborate. No, it's very important that we also connect with our peers, our colleagues, and collaborate with them. So that's what we've been doing in our school. Before we started these online classes, we had lots of meetings every day, and we collaborate. We put together what the resources that we have, and exchange ideas. So this is more effective. So these are things that we haven't done because we have two campuses. This time we come together as one, and then we share resources. So this is very effective for us. And also connecting to support groups, could be a prayer group or your network of friends and families, to ease what do you call this, the stress that we experience during work. And H is for hope. So hope is something that we should hold on to. No? So we take courage, we live in hope, and we become source of hope, not just for the kids, but to our fellow educators and to the families. No? So being a source of hope, yeah, as I have mentioned, we're an NGO. We don't only think of the education of the kids, we also think of where they will get their data, their connection, their cell phones, and even their food. So the school as a source of hope, we find people to help, so that these kids will be able to learn. Because if they're not because if they are hungry in their stomach, then they cannot learn. So those are things that I think could help us all to adjust in this new normal. So we thank you for, I thank the speakers for mentioning all the other supports that they have proposed for teachers. And most importantly is to develop a deeper connection with the supreme being, who is God, who can direct us and redirect our intention. So thank you. Let's all take courage and live in hope.
All right, maraming salamat po, Ma'am Beverlyn A. Batawang from Food for Hungry Minds School sa Malolos, Bulacan. So ayan po, nakita po natin na at our own level marami po tayong magagawa, lalo na po kung mag-usap-usap tayo amongst one another, mag-share po tayo ng mga practices, makinig po tayo sa isa't isa, at maalam natin what kinds of practices work best for our own personal, professional, and cultural context po. Kaya importante po talaga na lagi tayong we're always learning, lagi tayong nakikinig, lagi tayong nanonood ng mga presentation katulad nito, para malaman po natin kung paano po natin matutulungan yung sarili natin at paano tayo makakaraos po sa ating sa crisis na ito. Ayan. So, ayan po. sabi ko po kanina, time po to read a few reactions from our audience kanina. We are encourage you to share your insights with us on our in the comment section of the live stream or on Padlet. So kung paalala lang po, kung gusto niyo pa po mag-share po ng inyong mga saloobin tungkol po sa ating current topic, pwede niyo po nga gawin doon sa ating Padlet link, doon sa pinned post doon po sa ating Facebook live page. Yan po, yung padlet.com/psprd/QAR O Clock 2020. Or yun po, pwede nyo lang po i-type bilang comment yung inyong question or insight doon po sa comment section ng ating live stream at babasahin po natin siya on air. So, ayan po, magbasa lang po tayo ng konting reactions po. No? So, ito po, nakakataba po ng puso yung mga pasasalamat mula po dun sa mga katulad po ni Miss Maris Dawal. Good morning. This seminar is very timely. Maraming salamat po sa DepEd. Ayan, thank you po ma'am sa inyo sa inyong suporta po sa Research O'Clock at sa lahat po ng iba nating manonood. Ito naman po from Miss J. Ann. Sorry po kung medyo na-mispronounce ko po yung pangalan. Ang sabi po niya, mindfulness, is it difficult? We just need to remember how to do it. Ako, tama po ito, no? So, ang isang importanteng bagay po na kailangan po natin malaman tungkol sa mental health is para rin po siyang physical health na kapag hindi kailangan i-exert po natin yung sarili natin ng kaunti in order to improve it. Na parang, kunwari, kung ang utak natin ay parang muscle, if we exercise that muscle po, then it gets better at what it's supposed to be doing. So yun po, pag nag-build po tayo ng isang mindfulness routine, siguro mga 10 minutes every day nga po, or pag nakayanan po natin ng 10 minutes, yung iba po sa atin, nagiging mindfulness meditation na po siya, nagiging 20, 30, basta maglaan lang po tayo ng konting oras, ma-achieve po natin yung better results po. Dahil po, yun nga, our minds are infinitely changeable plastic things. Yun po, nababago po yan. Ano pa pong comment natin dito? Ayan po, from Facebook, from Apet Parosya Fermis, kay Sir Allen po, correct po, lack and ways of means to go po with the new norms like laptop and internet connection. Tama po na sa ngayon, alam naman po natin na hindi po optimal po yung ating sitwasyon, pero every little bit helps po, no, na we are providing policy support from above and also providing all of us po ways with which to cope with this current situation po. Okay, and then itong pangatlong comment po from our Padlet. Good morning. It is really hard to define a border between the roles we play since the structures and the practice were already combined into one place. Ako, malaking problema po ito nga, no, na ngayon na marami po sa atin ay naka-work from home setup, mahirap po talaga i-separate po yung boundary between personal life and professional life. Pero it helps po kung napanood niyo po yung previous episode ng Research O'Clock na mag-create tayo ng routine as much as possible. Tapos i-socialize po natin yung pamilya, ipaalala po natin sa ating mga ibang members ng mga household na meron tayong mga routines that we have to keep to. Among other things that we can do in order to establish a sense of normal po dun sa pandemic. Yun nga, kumbaga, normality involves routine po, and so to do that, we need to take steps in order to actively establish one. So for more on that, pwede po natin panoorin po yung previous episode ng Research O'Clock. Okay, so that's it for now para sa ating mga reactions. Ipapakilala ko naman po ang ating susunod na reactor. We have a public school representative this time naman po. We have Miss Cheryl D. Nazareno from the Castro Elementary School, DepEd Schools Division Office of Pasig, National Capital Region. Cheryl, nandiyan na po ba kayo?
Hello, good morning everyone. Before I start, I would like to congratulate and thank our speakers, Ms. Lori and Dr. Allen. Thank you for your insightful discussions this morning. I learned a lot from you. And so I would like to share one of the biggest challenges public schools are facing right now is the crafting and the reproduction of learning modules. In the Castro Elementary School alone, where I teach, we need 1,136 reams of bond papers to print just 1 week of learning modules. Excluded in that total are those who opted to print their own learning modules at home. So if you could just imagine the bulk of work and the expenses that the schools are shouldering right now, it's really a humongous effort. Although it is true that the schools will not be spending much on electricity, water, and other operating expenses, but the cost of the reproduction of the learning modules far exceeds the MOOE being issued to schools. So I would also like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who has been very supportive to their schools by means of donating A4 bond papers, inks, and other printing paraphernalia. Thank you so much to all of you. Um, and also, I would like to share um, one of the rising concerns among public school teachers is the work from home setup. We are not used to this setup. We are used to waking up early, going to school, meeting our learners face to face, meeting their parents face to face, going home in the afternoon after class, bring in some paperwork at home and doing it whenever we want to. But this work from home setup has changed everything. So how can we protect ourselves from stress and burnout? Like what Miss Laurie mentioned earlier, we could set our own boundaries. We could also practice mindfulness. Prioritizing is also essential. Setting schedules, having brain breaks, and engaging into activities that refuel. These are all essential to protect our mental health. And if I may add also, aside from all of this, teachers should be given the opportunity to set boundaries between personal work and between professional work and their personal lives, because if not given proper attention, this could lead to higher levels of stress among teachers. What support should DepEd provide its teachers is that maybe we could maximize the 8 to 5 working hours, and then after the working hours we could shut down our computers, turn off our gadgets, turn off our work modes, and switch into another mode of our choice. um, it's not that we are counting the extra hours we are rendering in service. It's just setting boundaries, which is essential to our mental health. The problem is we suddenly lost sense of time and date. There are no more weekends. There are no more holidays. Every day is a weekday. Every day is a work day. And if this continues, teachers could lose their focus. Teachers could lose their motivation, which could eventually lead to anxiety and worse, depression. Like in our case, my husband and I are both public school teachers. In the morning when we wake up, instead of greeting each other, we grab our cell phones and we start browsing, we start checking our inboxes. And it's the same scenario in the evening before we sleep. So this work from home setup is really changing our lives. Lucky for those who are quick to adapt, and to those who have already started to adapt. But what about those who are still struggling? I think the hashtag walang maiiwan should also apply to teachers. And so that's it. The work from home setup has really change the world of teachers. Some have already adopted, while some are still struggling. Another thing is that we cannot undermine the role that the parents are going to play in the distance learning setup. Yet, I feel that they are the most confused component or member of the distance learning setup. Despite the efforts of the school heads and the teachers in disseminating information, still they remain uninformed, misinformed, and lost. And so, if I were to ask support from DepEd, it would be that DepEd come up with an infomercial focusing on the role of parents in the distance learning modality. Because it is our duty to give them the correct information and to make the implementation of distance learning uniform across all regions if possible. So an infomercial, providing an infomercial for which focuses on the role of parents in the distance learning, I think could really help a lot and could save a lot of explanation from us teachers as to how the parents are going to go about the distance learning in their own homes. And another thing is maybe DepEd could provide teachers protection against cyberbullying, which is not far from happening since the platform we are going to use as our classroom is Facebook. So I guess DepEd should provide support for teachers on cases including cyberbullying and other related incidents which could arise in the new normal in teaching. So that's about it. Thank you and good morning again to everybody.
Ayan, maraming salamat po, Teacher Cheryl. So, bago po tayo mag-move on sa ating open forum, magbabasa po uli ako ng mga reactions from our audience. So, ayun na naman po. From Ma'am Tessie Rodring, good morning po from Amadeo National High School. Sarap pong makinig sa talk ninyo. Nakakagaan po ng pakiramdam. Why, thank you, ma'am. So, these are very gratifying comments po to hear and we hope po na you keep on supporting Research O'Clock. Ano pa ba? Ito po from Facebook from Miss Maria Maila Moncada of Santa Catalina Integrated National High, Harvest International School. Tama ba? Okay. Growth mindset is needed along with being mindful. There is an awareness of oneself with compassionate action. So, yun po, tama po talaga kapag nag-mindfulness exercise po talaga, may non-judgmental attitude. Hindi po, kung may mga feelings po tayo na negative, or positive, hindi natin po ina-assignan po ng value yun, whether positive or ng feelings of judgment po. Ayan. So, ano pa po? From Ma'am Lilette Talisik Roses. So, reaction po ata to kay Teacher Cheryl. True, ma'am. Teachers are working day and night. I give my salute to them. And kami rin po, we give our salute to teachers. So, yan po. That's it po for our reactions from the audience. Maybe now move on to the open forum. Paalala lang po uli. Bago yun, syempre, pasasalamat po sa ating mga reactors po at mga sharers. So, para po namin masagot ang inyong mga tanong, paalalahanin lang po natin uli na ilagay lang po na magtanong lang po ng relevant at direct question sa ating mga presenter at ibang panauhin. Ilagay lang po natin para kanino ang ating katanungan kapag nag-comment po tayo, whether yun nga sa ating live feed or dun sa ating Padlet. Or kung yun nga po, kung pwede natin i-post ang ating mga questions and insights sa comments portion ng live stream, or kung gusto po natin manatiling hindi kalala sa pagtanong at pag-share ng insights, pwede po i-post dun sa Padlet wall. Nandun po sa pinned post po dun sa ating Facebook feed, yung padlet.com/psprd/QAROclock2020. So, ayan po, mukhang nakakasana ang ating unang tanong, MC. What is our first question?
Thank you, Michael. Yung senior po ni Ma'am Cheryl, feel na feel ko yun. Although hindi ako teacher, pero work from home din ang setup natin. Alam ko po sa DepEd, marami din work from home ng teaching staff. So relate na relate ako doon. Yung adjustment sa bahay, ganyan. At sa family, ayan, naririnig niyo yung anak ko. Sigaw dyan, ayan. So, I guess the first question is, nakaka-relate talaga ito. Kasi si Sir Leo Asibar, ang question niya po kay kay Ms. Lori and Dr. Allen, siguro pwede pong mag-share ng kanilang insights or to answer this question. What could be the best practices in terms of psychosocial support and coping skills of teachers and parents of the learners in the time of pandemic? Okay po. Then, Dr. Allen also.
Okay, so thank you for all of your insights. And I think yung pinakakalaban natin na I just kind of want to revisit and highlight, yun nga yung nababanggit ninyo, yung work from home setup, and then the cognitive load. So unang-una siguro is to establish those boundaries and structures that I have mentioned. Parang yun yung the first thing that could help ourselves. Kasi those strategies are already available for us. Hindi natin kailangan gumawa ng extra. Siguro ang extra na kailangan natin gawin is yun nga, to be creative sa pagpaplano on how to set those boundaries. Also, siguro to change our attitude kasi madalas nagigilty tayo, no? Kapag halimbawa, hindi tayo nagtatrabaho, hindi natin sinasagot yung email natin agad-agaran. Nagigilty tayo na mag-shutdown ng 5 o'clock or siguro maupo para kumain ng itatabi muna yung cellphone natin, no? So may halong guilt at parang siguro, I don't know, shame sa ibang mga teachers na ba't di ka sumagot or hindi ka nag-respond ng email agad-agad. Pero parang kailangan tandaan natin, no, na lahat ng mga activities to restore ourselves, to shut down early, kakabit siya sa ating ability to perform and to be productive. So restoration and rest is so important to sustain our productivity. So that's it. Establish structures, make weekends sacred, panatilihin pa rin natin yung 8 to 5 na trabaho or whatever works for you. And then, yun, yung exercise na mindfulness, sobrang cost-effective siya kasi sobrang available niya online. You can also visit our Facebook. Merong free guided meditation. You can also look up YouTube and explore those guided meditations. And with continued practice, gaya nga ng sabi ni Sir Michael, no, mukhang babad Sir Michael practice ng mindfulness kasi naiintindihan niya yung konsepto. Ginagawa to para siyang exercise na strengthen yung ability natin to be emotionally resilient and strengthen our focus also. So, yun na nga, we just need 10 minutes per day to do that. Siguro, oras lang yon para maligo. Kung araw-araw nagagawa natin maligo or mag-toothbrush, pwede natin paglaanan ng oras itong exercise na to. So, yun yung dalawa. Structure, schedule, and then mindfulness.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lori. So, ayun po. Nagbigay po si Hello.
Ayan, thank you MC. So, meron pa tayong isa pang tanong dito from Padlet for teacher Lori. Ayan, when do we need to consult a psychologist or seek professional help for distress and possible depression? Mag-interject lang po ako dito, no. So parang meron po pa rin tayong notion na kapag when there's something wrong with us lang po or when we think there's something wrong with us, doon lang po tayo magsasangguni po sa isang psychiatrist. But this isn't actually necessarily true, di ba po, Ma'am Lori?
Totoo, no? Kasi parang meron tayong belief na pag grabe na, like addiction issues, psychosis, dun lang tayo pupunta sa psychologist or sa psychiatrist. Pero parang isipin natin, katulad din ng analogy ni Sir Michael, na ang ating mental health ay katulad din ng physical health. Kung bibisita tayo sa doktor to get prescription for vitamins, check on our BP and everything, we can also do that with our mental health. Pero importante tong tanong na to, no, na kasi meron din tayong mga simptomas na parang kung physical health, bibisita tayo for lagnat and everything, meron ding mga simptomas ng mental health na kailangan bumisita na tayo ng psychiatrist kasi kung gagamitin natin yung analogy ng physical health, para tong kailangan na natin ng atensyon ng ER. Okay? So ito yung mga simptomas. Pag halimbawa nakakaisip ka na ng mga pagkakataon na gusto mong saktan ng sarili mo or saktan ng ibang tao, humingi ka na ng tulong. So, ano pa ba? Pag yung mood mo na low mood, sobrang nag-persist and nagsusustain ng buwan na or weeks on end, more than 3 weeks, kumonsulta ka na. Pag hindi mo na naaalagaan yung sarili mo, wala ka ng energy, even maligo, kumain, or hirap ka na matulog, and wala siyang basihan na may sakit ka, hindi siya viral, hindi siya bacterial infection, humingi ka na ng tulong. So yun yung mga senyales, lalo na yung una kong nabanggit, kung sumasagi na sa isip mo na sakta ng sarili mo o sakta ng ibang tao, humingi ka na ng tulong.
Ayan, thank you Ma'am Lori. So MC, may isa pa yata tayong tanong dito sa ating round up, no? MC?
Mindful of our mental health. It's also a reality that we are oftentimes burned, but teachers mostly cope up not because they are strong, but they are aware that they have a God whom they can rely and trust, and who is very mindful of situations we are all in. Yes po, agree with that. But ito pong question niya, how do you practically cope up with your stress as a psychologist, as a teacher, and as a mother that could also encourage more teachers and mothers like most of us?
Sorry, hindi ko masyado narinig.
Hindi ko rin masyado narinig.
Oo nga, ano po, bali po,
Hindi ko narinig.
Ang tanong po is parang a matter of personal coping mechanisms po. How do you resource speakers cope up with your stress personally in ways po na could be also imitated or imbibed po by more teachers and mothers like most of us? Ano po yung nagawa na po natin personally?
Okay.
Sige.
Sir Allen?
Okay, I'll share first. So,
Yeah.
hindi kasi ako sanay na nag-work from home. Ako yung klase ng tao na hindi ako nag-uwi ng trabaho, ever. While I was doing my PhD, hindi ako nag-uwi ng isusulat ko, ever. Hindi ako nag-uwi ng trabaho from the university going home. Never ako nag-mark ng papers from home or nagsulat ng kahit ano from home. So it was really a big shift sa akin yung working from home. Working in the office to working from home. Really big shift. And ako man, nahirapan ako mag-shift doon sa klase sa arrangement na ito. Simula nung nagkaroon ng pandemic noong March, ang daming adjustments na nangyari sa akin. So, ang dami ko ring naranasan physiologically, psychologically, no, na I think gusto ko siya i-share para malaman ng mga teachers na hindi lang naman sila yung mga nakakaranas ng mga ganitong predicaments or precarious na mga sitwasyon, no? Unang-una na dyan yung, sabi ko nga, dahil hindi ako sanay magtrabaho sa bahay, so nafe-feel ko na nape-pressure ako at talagang nahihirapan ako makapag-focus at mag-concentrate kapag nag-work from home. Sa mga unang weeks ng pandemic, talaga nahirapan akong mag-focus at nahirapan akong mag-work from home, no? So ano yung mga ginawa ko at mga actions na isinabuhay ko para makapag-cope ako sa ganitong sitwasyon. So number one, tama si Miss Laurie, no? So what I did is I start work at 8 a.m. I check all emails at 8 a.m. Hindi ako nagbubukas ng email beyond 5 p.m. So 5 p.m., shut down lahat. Shut down yung computer, shut down yung mga work emails, lahat yan. Hindi ko sila binubuksan ng 5 o'clock or beyond 5 o'clock. Except na lang kapag merong kailangan talaga na urgent. No? Weekends, never ko talagang binuksan ng work emails ko. Talagang hindi ko sila, wala akong ginagalaw na trabaho tuwing weekend. So nag-create ako ng temporal boundary, tama si Ms. Laurie, no? ng time boundary between work and yung personal life ko. No? So ganito rin, kapag lunch break, ganun din. So, parang nasa ano rin kayo, nasa school, no? Huwag kayo 11 to 12, 12 to 1 talagang break yan. So, mag-nap kayo or magpahinga kayo, watch your favorite noontime show. So, mga ganyan, no? So, I think yun yung mga paraan na nakapag-cope up sa akin. And pangalawa is connection sa mga mahal ko sa buhay, sa mga kaibigan. Very important na, kasi mga teachers tayo, sanay tayo na lagi nakikipag-interact, lagi nakakakita ng mga warm bodies, no, na kasama natin sa paaralan. So, stay in contact with your loved ones and friends and your students kung maaari, no? And pangatlo ay, aside from mental health, physical health ko. So I do some exercise at home, yung mga yoga na pwede kong gawin lang sa aking bahay, no. And then I go for a run kapag maayos ang panahon, and dito lang din sa compound, hindi ako lumalabas ng bahay. So I think yun yung mga paraan. And pangatlo, nagkaroon ako ng mga bagong libangan, mga bagay na hindi ko ginagawa before, no? So kapag hindi ako nag-work, I do some gardening. So nag-aalaga ako ng mga plants, ayan. So bigla ako nagka-interest sa mga plants ngayon, no? Aside from walking my dog. So yun lang. Maraming salamat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ma'am Laurie, meron pa po kayong dadagdag dyan.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Allen. So, ano yung ginagawa ko? I maintain a routine. So, I try to practice what I preach. So, I wake up at the same time every day and then sleep at the same time at night. I have established rituals to help me habits to transition from one activity to the next. So, I literally wear jeans kapag nagtatrabaho ako para I get into that zone and moment na okay, time for work. So the physical things we see actually help our mind adjust and ease into the work task at hand. What else? Gaya ni Sir Allen, no, social support is so important during this time. Knowing that you have other people who will unconditionally accept you and who will be there for them, who will be there for you. So your colleagues, actually that in itself, just knowing that and engaging in that activity physically lowers your blood pressure levels. So those activities, those experiences even impact not just our mental health, but also physically as well. What else? I also exercise thrice a week. I do meditation, mindfulness meditation, 20 minutes every day, soon as I wake up. And as much as possible, I try to choose healthy meals. Siyempre, limitado tayo doon sa access natin sa pagbili, di ba? So, kung ano lang yung available doon sa katabing sari-sari na gulay, I try to choose that versus go for canned processed food. I actually do gratitude journaling every night. Just 3 things that I am grateful for. Why? Because hindi maiwasan ng utak natin to gravitate towards negative news right now. So it's one way to help ourselves balance our perspective and see that there are actual real good things that we should be thankful for. So those are the things I do.
Ayan. Thank you, Sir Allen, Ma'am Lori. Napaka-relatable actually ng mga personal measures yun para makapag-cook. Parang ako rin, marami din po dyan nagagawa ko yung mga pag-set up ng routine, yung really getting into the zone. Kasi mapapansin po talaga pag pinag-aralan po natin yung psychological literature na a lot of it talaga is based on little things that affect parang our affect po, no? Yung the way we, yung unconsciously think about things. So kailangan talaga we really need to set it up so that we are in a position to work po or do whatever it is we need to do every day. Tapos yun nga, even after working, we make sure that we have time for ourselves na ayan nga po, halimbawa sa background, yun naman po yung naging bagong hobby ko. Bumili ng cookbook tapos natutong magluto. Ayan po. At marami pa pong I'm sure nakaka-relate po dun sa mga shinare niyo po today. So, bago po tayo mag-move on to the next part of our program, magbabasa lang po uli ako ng final reactions from our audience. Ayan po. So from Zilu, I think this is from Facebook. Totoo po, there is no disconnect at home when we work from home. That is why we need to manage our time at home. Since we work from home, we need to make sure that there are limitations on what we do because the tendency is that we consume all of our time working. We forget to disconnect and that is unfair for our family. Opo, tama po yan. Again, another reaction po from Facebook. From Michelle Raimundo Manera, good morning po. Thank you, Ma'am Cheryl, for what you have said about giving boundaries to professional work and personal life. Sometimes we even stay late at night preparing learning materials for learners. We even forget to give time for our kids and families. Tapos, last po na reaction from Nenita Beth Roleda Duran from Facebook rin yata to. We must train our minds to become more adaptive for us to remove stress in our lives in this new normal. Hashtag choose to be happy, choose to be resilient. Ayan. So, thank you Thank you po sa ating mga reactors. Thank you po sa ating mga resource speakers for providing their insights for today at saka sa ating mga audience. We'd like to thank you all for your insightful comments and questions. At bigyan po natin ng virtual na palakpakan po ang ating mga resource speakers and guests. No? At maraming salamat din po sa ating mga partners sa pagpapacilitate po ng activity na to, ang DepEd Public Affairs Service at ang Filipino Sign Language interpreters natin from the Philippine School for the Deaf, si Sir Billy, si Sir Jay at si Miss Ellen Grace. So, now naman po, ipapakilala ko po si Miss Mariel C. Bayangos para ilahad ang Chief of the Policy Research and Development Division, Planning Service, Department of Education para ilahad po ang ating mga natutunan ngayong araw. Mariel?
Okay, thank you, Michael. Maraming salamat. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. I know and I hope we are all learning ngayong araw po na ito, no? So sobrang relatable yung topic na ibinahagi sa atin ni Teach Lori and Sir Allen, in terms of preparing ourselves psychologically and also yung mga skills din natin mentally also to win conquer yung mga challenges ng new normal. So maybe to wrap up yung session na ito, gusto ko pong i-highlight lang yung dalawang bagay na nag-mark sa akin. Yung relationship ng hand. So ayan, so kung nanonood po kayo, I just wanted to siguro follow me. So yung relationship ng hand and also ng mind. So pwede natin tong gawing quick exercise as we do our work from home. So mula po dun sa presentation ni Teach Lori, makita po natin na yung hand natin, yung behaviors natin, yung mga nangyayari sa atin will send us signal whether we are okay or not. So yun nga, yung pagiging irritable natin, also kapag hindi na rin tayo nagiging productive, ganon. So we have to watch out for signals, when we are working from our respective homes. So watch out yung mga signals natin. And then with that, as we look at these signals, dapat makita din natin maintindihan natin what's going on in our mind. So kanina, maganda yung pagkakalatag ni Teacher Lori on paano tayo nakaabot dun sa mga ganito, nagkakaroon tayo ng mga mental stresses. Kasi nga, nag-shift bigla eh. Diba? While 5 buwan na tayong nasa quarantine and some of us are probably working from home the past 5 months. Pero yung shift, biglaan kasi siya and it's massive and it's everywhere and everyone's experiencing it. So we don't really expect ourselves na agad-agad lahat tayo ay makaka-adjust. So it's really a process. So it's important that we understand. So nag-shift, maraming naging pagbabago, pero hindi natigil yung work. May mga work pa rin tayo. Of course, may mga roles pa rin tayo na kailangang gampanan. Bukod dun sa pagiging teacher natin, syempre magulang din tayo, anak tayo, kapatid. So lahat ng ito, hindi sila tumigil, nanatili sila at kailangan natin silang gawin. At the same time, yung katawan natin, yung isip natin, nag-a-adjust sila dito sa crisis na kinakaharap natin. So it's really important that we understand paano tayo umabot dito sa sitwasyon na ito, ano yung mga nagbago sa paligid natin, ano yung sitwasyon na kinapalooban natin. And yung awareness is very important. No? We understand how the mind process so we can transition well and we can become more effective and efficient dun sa pagganap ng mga tungkulin natin, hindi lang bilang guro, but all the other roles that we are playing. So also, mula dun sa paglatag din ni Sir Allen dun sa professional development support sa mga kaguruan natin, we also know na hanggat hindi natin nauunawaan yung mga changes na nangyayari sa ating sarili, sa ating kaisipan, sa ating katawan, mahihirapan din tayong mag-transition towards improving our skills. So kumbaga, this will be a constant battle. Kailangan mong magturo, pero at the same time, alam mo, internally, meron kang mga mental stress, may mga psychosocial concerns ka na kailangang i-address. So, ayun po, kailangan pagtugmain natin yung dalawa na yon para manatili tayong effective and efficient dun sa ating pagro. Also, at the same time, gusto ko lang din pong i-reiterate yung isa sa na-mention ng reactors po natin, na kailangan alam din natin kung paano mag-establish ng support system natin. Kanina sinasabi ko po sa inyo na hindi natigil yung role natin. Pero at the same time, hindi rin naman nawala yung mga tao around. Andyan pa rin yung mga kaibigan natin, andyan pa rin yung pamilya natin, andyan pa rin yung mga kasamahan natin sa trabaho. Maybe with our existing support system, we can find help dun sa para malampasan yung mga challenges na kinakaharap natin. And of course, again, mindfulness, very important, establishing routine. So kumbaga, dahil hindi na natin ginagawa yung dati nating routine, it's time to really learn new routine, unlearn yung mga hindi natin mga ginagawa prior to COVID. So para mas maka-adjust po tayo ng maayos at mas maging handa tayo sa darating na pagbubukas ng school year po na ito. And maybe last point, as we put together yung dalawang presentation na narinig po natin ngayon, taking care of ourselves and learning new skills in the new normal, in the context of the new normal, I hope we get to affirm na yung creativity ng teachers. Alam ko po there are also limitations in terms of our resources, but we know from the start that teachers are creative. It's just that, and I'm sure teachers will continue to become creative. It's just that, of course, merong mga na kailangan nating mapagtagumpayan. So, ayun po, again, hand and mind. So, let's continue to focus on ourselves so we can share something, lalo na sa mga mag-aaral po natin who we would be welcoming ngayong darating na pasukan. Yun lang po. Again, maraming salamat, Teach Lori. Thank you, Sir Allen. Thank you to our reactors, Teacher Bevs, Teacher Cheryl, and to the Philippine School for the Deaf, ang ating mga FSL. Maraming salamat for joining us. Thank you, PASPD, for your support. While nagkaroon po tayo ng technical issues right now sa ating FB Live, but still, go pa rin itong ating Research O'Clock. I know you've been learning the past 4 sessions. Next week po, abangan po natin. Pag-uusapan naman natin kung paano natin susuportahan naman yung mga learners. Kanina, maganda yung cue ni Teacher Cheryl na mention na niya na dapat ma-inform yung mga parents. So next week po, titignan na natin, we will examine that area. How are we going to support our household as they partner with our schools in the teaching and learning process of our children. So yun lang po. Again, maraming salamat po and good morning.
Ayan, maraming salamat Mariel. So, ayan po para sa ating for a few reminders po, MC, nandiyan ka ba?
Yes, Michael, yes. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga manonood, sa ating guests, sa ating speakers. Ayun po. We hope bawat isa po sa atin ay may panibago na namang natutunan. So with that, we value your thoughtful feedback on today's forum. So kindly accomplish lang po ang ating feedback form na makikita sa posted link. Or you may also scan the QR code para po ma-access ang ating feedback form. Ayan po. So maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat muli sa pag-suporta sa ating Research O'Clock. We hope to see you again in our next Research O'Clock on August 12 po. August 12, Wednesday pa rin po. Same time po tayo, 9 a.m. with the topic Engaging Household in Distance Learning po naman. Ayun. So, Michael, thank you everyone.
And At ako naman, si Michael Manango. Pareho po kaming mula sa Policy Research and Development Division, Planning Service, Department of Education, saying, we're signing off. Have a good day and take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Teach Lori. Thank you, Sir Allen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steps.
Thank you po.
Salamat. Thank you. Salamat sa mga FSL natin. Salamat. Thank you so much.